So, your Friendly Neighbourhood Spider-Man has been debuting its first 9 episodes over the past week or so on Disney+, and while we are still a week away from that finale, I wanted to jump on here and talk to you guys about this show because it is getting some attention online, but not as much as it should be. This show has surprised me leaps and bounds. I am absolutely in love with this show so far, and more people need to be on board with this show before the finale comes out next week. So if you're unaware, which you might be because Disney has not done an amazing job of marketing this show, it is a new animated Spider-Man series on Disney+, which is kind of MCU adjacent but not set within the mainline MCU, and tells a new origin story for Peter Parker, aka Spider-Man, in this new universe that, like I say, has kind of similarities and relatives to the mainline MCU, but this is its own universe. Also, apologies if you hear some loud noises going on in the background. One of my neighbours is having some work done in the house. I can't avoid it. So first thing I want to talk about straight out of the gate is something that has been a bit of a controversy online regarding this show, and if you're clocked into these sort of things, I'm sure you probably know what I'm about to talk about, and that is the fact that this show is not woke, or is woke, or whatever. Now, the word woke, I personally can't stand. It's not even a word to me. I just can't stand any of the conversation surrounding it. It's just annoying. But I wanted to specifically bring it up for this show because there was a thing that came out from the voice actor of Spider-Man in this show, where right before it came out, he said that, oh, I was worried that this show was going to be woke, but it's not woke. It's actually really cool. And everyone was like, oh, interesting response, okay. And I think all of us collectively, when we watched this show, we went, hang on a minute, this is the most woke Spider-Man thing maybe ever made. And I have to say, as someone who, like I say, I don't like the word woke, I don't use it, I don't think it applies to this show. But if we're going off of the standards of what woke typically means to these people who use that word irregularly to describe these things, this is so woke. Like, this is the most woke Spider-Man project I have ever seen. One of the most woke comic book movie properties I've seen in a very, very long time. We have characters who are members of the LGBTQIA+ community. We've also got gender-bent characters, we've got race-bent characters, like all the things that would typically trigger the kind of woke army online is in this show. So the fact that the voice actor of Spider-Man came out and said that this isn't woke, I'm kind of amazed by, because have you seen the show? Like, it's crazy. And part of me just thinks, is this some sort of marketing tactic that they got to kind of get people to watch the show? I don't know. But I just wanted to address that straight up, that this is one hell of a woke show, and it's great. Next thing I want to talk about is the animation style. Now, the animation style has had a bit of back and forth amongst the community. There are some people out there who think the show looks great, others think it looks a little bit empty, and I can see both sides. Overall, for me, I've grown to really like the animation style. I remember when I first put on the first episode, it took me a little bit to get into it. Like, it took me a minute for my eyes to kind of adjust to it, because it is kind of weird. It's this very clean animation, like it's very clean looking, but it also has these kind of finite details to it that make some elements of it stand out and some of it kind of blend into the background. And I get why some people say it feels a bit empty, because there is a lot of dead space sometimes in some of the scenes, particularly in like the New York scenes where Spider-Man is swinging through the city. Like, there's not as many people around as you'd maybe like there to be. But overall, the more I've watched the show, the more I've gotten into the animation style, and I really like it overall. It kind of has this animation style that I've seen on some like posters throughout time in my life, where I find them very visually appealing, and I feel like this show has taken that style of animation and just applied it to the show, and it's really, really cool. I also love the comic panels throughout. There are so many moments in this series where we kind of have these comic panels flash up on screen where they're kind of taking different characters and showing them all at the same time in different panels, and it looks really cool. It's really effective, it's snappy, and that goes along with the editing as well. I think the show is really well edited. I just think overall the kind of production style of this show is really appealing, and it's just made it really easy to watch, in these kind of 3-episode stints that they've been releasing them in. Also, the intro to this series has also been getting a lot of attention, and I must say, I'm not a fan of it myself, like the kind of, modern rap Spider-Man intro. It's not for me. It kind of reminded me a little bit of the intro of the sort of 2012 Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles TV show on Nickelodeon. It kind of reminded me of that. But I will say on the intro, while I'm not a huge fan of the rap, I do skip the intro when I watch this show. The actual ending of the intro, where they do the "Here Comes the Spider-Man" bit and they have, that audio play, is really cool. And not only that, every episode intro ends with a reference to a classic Spider-Man comic panel, but recreated with, you know, the relevancy of the show, which I think is really, really awesome. Now, as mentioned in the beginning, this is a Spider-Man origin story. We are going back to the origin of Spider-Man, which is something that the MCU obviously didn't do. They tried to sort of steer away from the origin due to the fact that we'd seen it a couple of times before that, which I understand why they did that. I actually think at the time it was a good choice. But kind of going back to the origin of Spider-Man, what I really appreciate about this series is that it's a completely fresh take. Like, yeah, obviously you still have the standard, you know, classic things that happen to Spider-Man in his origin. He gets bitten by the spider, Uncle Ben is passed away, although the interesting switch in this is that Uncle Ben is actually dead before he gets bitten by the spider rather than after, which I know there are some Spider-Man purists out there who don't love that. I personally think it's kind of an interesting, you know, different take. It doesn't really affect the show that much, in my opinion. It's, you know, I feel like it'd be the same regardless. So I'm not really that bothered by it. But what I do like specifically is that all the characters that Peter kind of surrounds himself with in this series are all completely fresh. Like, we don't have MJ, we don't have Gwen Stacy. We do have Harry Osborn, but he comes in a little bit later on and he is very, very different to what we've seen before. You know, we have new characters like Pearl and Nico and Lonnie Lincoln, all of which have never appeared in live action before, at least not in this degree. And I think that that's really cool. It's really nice. It's refreshing. It makes this new Spider-Man origin story, which we've seen time and time again, feel different and feel fresh and feel like, you know, we're not just retreading the same old ground, you know, where we've got Peter meeting MJ in school and falling in love with her and then having to go through all that. And then, you know, the same thing with the same friendship groups. Like, we've got new dynamics at play, and I really, really like that. Speaking of that friend group, like, the real surprise standout of this entire series is Lonnie Lincoln, who, if you know the comics, he does become Tombstone later on, and they do give him the name Tombstone so far, you know, where we're at the moment. But what a brilliant character. Like, what a surprise. Like, I didn't expect them to go down the route they have with him. There goes the noise. It just really surprised me. Like, I was really shocked with how kind of heartfelt it all was and how it really spoke to me and really reached me, you know, this kind of tragic story of this character. And I'm really not looking forward to where this character is going to go because, you know, we've seen him kind of go down this tragic downfall so far. I just don't want to see him, you know, have to suffer even more, but I feel like we're going to when we get potentially to season 2, maybe even season 3. Now, I sort of mentioned it earlier as well, but this is an MCU adjacent show. So to clear that up, this isn't set in the MCU universe. You know, this isn't the origin of Tom Holland's Spider-Man. But what it does is it kind of gives you hints of stuff that's going on in the wider universe. Like, there is a MCU kind of at play in this. Like, there are a lot of different MCU cameos we see throughout here. Like, there is an Iron Man cameo, there's a Captain America cameo, there's a Doctor Strange cameo. So there are characters that we see in the MCU, but in this universe, and they are different versions. And there are also events that happen in the MCU that happen here. Like, they do reference the invasion of New York once, and they also introduce the Sokovia Accords in this as well. And they mention the airport battle from Civil War, which Spider-Man in this universe isn't actually involved in. And they also do the switch up where, rather than the scene in Civil War where Peter goes home and Tony Stark is in his house, they do that scene, but it's with Norman Osborn. And that's, you know, there's all these different versions of the MCU where they're kind of just flipping it on its head and showing how they are in this universe, which is really nice because, like, as an MCU fan, we all kind of wanted to see that from Tom Holland's Spider-Man. Like, we wanted to see, you know, kind of these different elements of him. And this show is allowing us to do that while also still giving us those fun kind of MCU references that we can point out and go, oh, it's that thing, and this is how they're doing it differently. And it's just a fun way of doing it. And I think it's, again, a fresh way of showing these characters and how this kind of is different from the mainline MCU. Also, I have to shout out the suit designs in this. I mean, the homemade suit that he starts off with in the first few episodes is really nice. It is kind of similar to Tom Holland's homemade suit, but a little bit more high-tech slightly. But it looks really great. And again, it perfectly represents, you know, a young Peter Parker making his suit for the first time. We also get a spin on the Future Foundation suit, which is really nice. Like, we've never seen that before in a Spider-Man TV show, at least, you know, in the modern time, or in a movie or anything like that. And I loved that. It's not the Future Foundation. Obviously, this has nothing to do with the Fantastic Four, but there is a kind of take on that. It's an all-white Spider-Man suit. It looks great. And we also get to see, like, fun little references, like the Hornet costume, which I remember being in, like, the Amazing Spider-Man 2 video game and stuff like that, which probably, you know, that dates me. But I just like these kind of fun little references to the other suits. And it seems like in the finale, which we're getting next week, we're going to actually see Spider-Man in the classic red and blue suit, which hopefully will also look really, really good. I'm interested to see if that is, you know, kind of a carbon copy of Tom Holland's first proper Spider-Man suit from Civil War, or if this is going to be a new version of the suit that we haven't seen before. I suspect it's going to be the latter. And the villain lineup has also been really, really strong. I mean, what I have appreciated about it is that, you know, especially in the first sort of 5 to 6 episodes of the show, Spider-Man's not really dealing with these big threats. He's not dealing with these big villains. Like, he is very much a street-level character, and he's dealing with these street-level threats where all of the characters he's dealing with are all kind of technology-based, which is nice. I feel like that's what Spider-Man needs to do, and that's where he, you know, fits best, and we get to see that. But as the show goes on, and as this season has gone on, we've started to get these bigger villains, these more classic Spider-Man villains coming in, like Doc Ock has been in the season, who was really fun, and also a character I really want to see, in my opinion, as the main villain of Spider-Man 4, the Scorpion. I love Scorpion, great character, and them giving us Mac Gargan, I think, is a really, really nice version of him, and his kind of tie into the characters we already met on the show. Really fun, really interesting, and it's nice to actually see Scorpion used and utilized properly on the screen, because I think the films are probably just going to ignore that he was ever there, which is a shame. But the villains have been really, really good, and I have to give a special shout out to Coleman Domingo, who voices Norman Osborn in this. What a great version of Norman Osborn, like really smarmy but sophisticated, smart. You can buy why Peter is kind of infatuated with him in a way, and, you know, looks up to him and wants to impress him. But you can sense that there is this something deeper beneath him. Like, you know, there is this kind of other side to him that he doesn't show Peter and perhaps doesn't show Harry as much. And we're maybe going to see that in the finale. And I'm sure, obviously, Norman is going to go on in future seasons to be even more villainous and show that side of him even more. But great performance from Coleman Domingo. So good. Maybe the best part of the show. He's brilliant. And I've enjoyed the villain side of the show altogether. And if I can just lob one more bit of praise at this show, the Daredevil scene, phenomenal. Just phenomenal. Having Charlie Cox voice Daredevil, obviously inspired choice, but we also have a fantastic fight scene between Spider-Man and Daredevil in this show, and they even play the Netflix Daredevil theme, like a remix of it, in the background of the fight, which just was the cherry on top. Great moment. Like, it's not a full Daredevil episode. Like, I know a lot of people will be going into the show, like, because Daredevil was in the marketing a little bit. Like, there's not a lot of Daredevil. He is basically in one scene, but it's a good scene, and it's worth the watch, and he's brilliant in it, and it just gets me even more excited for Born Again next month. So, if I haven't made it clear enough already, go and watch your Friendly Neighborhood Spider-Man. It's so shockingly good. I didn't expect it to be this good. This kind of has similar vibes to me that I had with Agatha All Along, which I went into that show with no expectations whatsoever. I wasn't looking forward to it. I didn't think I was going to like it, and I came away really enjoying it. Same with this. I went into it just not caring. Like, I just don't really feel the need for a Spider-Man animated show. You know, the fact that it was kind of in the MCU but wasn't in the MCU and all that stuff, I just wasn't interested. But I stuck it on, and very, very quickly the show won me over. And I think it will do the same for you when you watch it. And, you know, you've got a few more days to catch up on these 9 episodes. They're only half an hour long each as well, so it's a really easy binge if you're into binging. So get it done, and then we can all sit down and watch the finale together. And I believe the show has already been renewed for season 2 and 3, so we've already got a, you know, long life ahead with this show, which I'm looking forward to, because I think the creators behind it do love the character of Spider-Man, and they've really showed that on the screen. But I love the show. I think it's great. I hope you watch it, and I also hope to see more of you guys in my next video, whenever that will be. See you later.